Hello, welcome to Krieger TCG, your channel for competitive Pokemon TCG content for non-professional players. I'm coming at you here today with round 3 of my North American Players Cup 3 regional finals here. We've got a thrilling matchup, by which I mean there's lots of passing involved. But I'll use it as an opportunity to talk about metagaming and deck building in general and how to play Rogue well. There's a lot of important concepts that this matchup brings out. So you can see right away we're going to approach it quite a bit differently than most matchups. We know that our win condition from the get-go is going to be decking them out. So if they have 2 Pokemon in play, we can use our Phione ability to move their active Pokemon to the bench, and then Phione goes to the bottom of the deck. And that's true even if we have no deck. So we can do that indefinitely and keep drawing the Phione for turn, play it down, switch their active, and then draw Phione for turn again. We can do that infinitely. It never runs out. They don't have any way to play around it. And eventually they'll run out of cards. It's a very, very slow process, but it's an incredibly reliable way to win. So we're going to be building towards that. When I did my initial deck search, I'm really just searching for rare candies, Decidueyes, and the Phione. That's all that matters, is getting one out. I don't care about taking prizes. Taking prizes is actually the last thing I want to do, because that may leave them with only 1 Pokemon in play, which means I can't use Phione's ability to prevent decking out. That would actually hinder my win condition. So in the meantime, though, I'm going to keep playing as if I'm approaching it like a more normal matchup. We finally get our Decidueye out. We have a Phione in hand, so we know at this point that we've won the game. It's just going to be a really slow process. There's a couple interesting things that happen when you get in this situation. Is you have the end game wrapped up. They probably don't know that if they haven't played the matchup a lot. That's part of why you want to play Rogue, but also can mean some really drawn out games. Thankfully there's no time limit in this tournament, so it wasn't a matter of potentially losing the round or getting a tie. It was just a matter of how much time we'd spend clicking draw pass. So this match ends up taking a while, but everything that needs to have been done is already done for us. They're playing cards, which is nice. It speeds it up a little bit. They could draw past 40 times and then Marnie and recycle their deck and then take 40 more turns. But none of that changes the end game scenario, which is they have multiple Pokemon in play. We can recycle indefinitely with Phione. They can recycle with dolls, but they have to switch back or else I can knock out the doll. So they'll eventually run out of switches or energies to retreat off. Even if it takes 100 turns, it's fine. There's nothing in their deck that can damage our Decidueye. So there's no way for them to take prizes, and there's no way for them to deck us out. We'll speed through quite a bit of draw passing here. Just fast forward for the sake of convenience. We got Ordinary Rod to reshuffle here just to get some extra cards. Still doing a little bit of damage, not changing anything, just to do something. We do take 1 knockout here, but we already have access to the Phione. It doesn't give us extra cards in our deck, so we can do more passing later. They're going to have several Marnies probably to shuffle their deck, which is just going to drag things out. I'm doing a little bit of damage here just to sort of posture and try to get them to play more cards, but it's not going to make any difference. So this is one advantage of having played something more Rogue for longer than most of your opponents have either tried to play it or tried playing against it. I knew coming into this tournament that Lucario Melmetal was going to be pretty popular, and I also knew that the standard lists, when a meta is really established, then it makes Rogue decks better, because 58 to 59 out of the 60 cards you're going to be facing. There was a point in the same meta a bit earlier where the LucMetals were playing Stealthy Hood or 2 to block Giratina from removing their special energies. That fell out of favor for whatever reason. But if they were playing Stealthy Hoods, we would have to have a Tool Scrapper and or a way to recycle Tool Scrapper, like a Munchlax, in order to get the infinite lock. Because Stealthy Hood does block your Pokemon from being affected by abilities. That includes Phione's ability if the Stealthy Hood's in the active it can't be pushed to the bench. But since the Stealthy Hoods were entirely out of the lists, I knew that I was going to have free wins in this matchup without having to do anything. So I get up to 210 HP and then decide, okay, the joke's up, stop attacking. I really don't want to knock that out. That eliminates my win condition. So now we just pass into Oblivion. So knowing what the LucMetal players were going to play meant I could win this match for free without having to play any extra cards. The one Phione. Phione has fringe use as well when you want to push the active to the bench in order to wind shard it. I'll use it in the early game a lot against like Volcanions that you want to set up for 2 shots, or if there's a Tapu Koko Prism in the active for whatever reason and you want to put some damage counters on it. It's useful for that. It's not completely dead card in other matchups, but mainly it's here for this one matchup. So they start to do some dolls and dance. This is going to buy him some time, but it's not going to change the outcome at all. If they ever do leave a doll in play, it's worth taking a knockout on the doll, just so that they have less turns with which to do this. So we're going to get down to 1 card, but we have the Phione to loop completely and never lose. The other point I want to make about playing rogue decks is some of the mantras, I guess, that the professional players in the Pokemon community always stand by. I find it doesn't always apply to rogue decks. How many times do you hear an interview with someone who just won a regional and they'll say, yeah, my deck was the most consistent, consistency is king, that's why I won. It's something that gets repeated a lot, I think, because it's true for really good players. Part of my goal with this channel is to help players who may not be so good. I consider myself an above average player, but not a world-class player by any means. So for me to get great finishes like this, I have to play rogue decks and play things that are unexpected. At least I feel that I do, to do it reliably. But through doing that, I've picked up some tips and tricks that I want to share with people. One of those is you want to tech a lot when you're playing a rogue deck. You want, if there's a common matchup that's like more than 10% of the time and you can win that matchup with 1 card, always play it. Consistency is king is true only if you're an excellent player and you're playing a meta deck, because that gives someone like Tordoreklev the chance to outplay his opponents. And they will do that consistently enough to win giant tournaments, and then when they're done, they credit, the consistency of my deck, that's why I won, which is 100% true for them. But if you're an average player and you're trying to copy their strategy, you're going to have a hard time winning tournaments. You're just not good enough. If you're an average player and you want to get a big finish, you're better off playing something rogue that has more high variance, and with that, you want to tech for specific matchups and get as many auto wins as possible. You have to be okay in advance with losing to the occasional dead draw. You have to be okay with losing to auto losses. Those are outside of your control, but the upside is you hit your auto wins over and over again, and then you just won the tournament. I personally, given my knowledge of this format, I don't think I had any business finishing in the top 4 and advancing to global finals. If I played one of the top 3 or 4 decks, it's very, very unlikely that would happen. I may have just gotten just as lucky in other ways, or played out of my mind on that day for whatever reason. But to me, this was a more reliable approach to get there, as basically dodge fire decks and get auto wins. So this game, we've got our Decidueye up. We know we can loop indefinitely the Phione once we get to the late game, and our opponent knows that too now, based on how game 1 played out. So we're sort of at the mercy of our opponents here as far as how long they want to drag out the game. What I like to do in these situations is kind of show them the Phione to prove that I don't have deck out. You're not allowed to ask someone to concede. That's unsportsmanlike, but you can show that your win condition is achieved and then let them do with that information whatever they want. And I think sportsmanship-wise, that's fine. there was one time I was playing this matchup in a cash tournament in top cut, and there was a time limit in play, and I had to call a judge and say, hey, you can't slow play and wait for the whole timer to go down. I had priced Phione one of the games and lost that one, so I had to end the series. But you see my opponent here is a good sport, says I don't want to do this all day, no need to draw past 300 times and then lose. It literally can go that long. But he sees the end game and concedes and has a great attitude. So props to my opponent here for the sportsmanship. I really appreciated not dragging this game out. Would have made for a longer day for everybody in the tournament if our match had slowed down unnecessarily. So that's round 3. We get a quick 2-0. We didn't prize the Phione. We hit our auto win. Very happy. And while we're here, let's jump ahead to round 4. Because you can see my opponent's start, even down to the same Pokemon. This is not an instant replay, this is an entirely new round, but they have the same arts on the V Pokemon there, and they've got the metal sleeves, and what do you know, we've got our Phione in deck. We have a good start here. Lots of cards. We do not get anything off the research, but that's fine. They're not threatening a KO on that Rowlet. And besides, we have 6 prizes to go, and all we need to do is set up 1 Decidueye and win the game. So it's very rewarding in its own way to hit matchups like this that you've planned for, you built your deck for it specifically. All you have to do is get your wall out. They can't damage it, and you are good to go. All set. We have a second one down, which is great. We do not want to bench the Phione here. We can get it out of play, I guess that's fine. But we don't want to leave it on the bench in case our opponent can knock it out. We could probably just get it back with Ordinary Rod if we had to. But we see I keep it in my hand there just because I don't want to risk anything. Keep drawing through the deck, just trying to eventually get 1 Decidueye up, and then we're there. So I guess I'll go back to my meandering thoughts on playing rogue decks. I don't play rogue decks 100% of the time, but when the meta is really settled and has a really good matchup spread and my goal is to win the tournament, that's where kind of the stars align to play something that has a really polarized matchup spread. Tends to be much better later in the format because archetypes are available and you know what those lists are going to be. Early in the format, it's really hard to pull this kind of thing off, just like it's really hard to play control decks successfully because you just don't know what counters your opponents are going to have available. But we see here we have the Decidueye up. We have our Phione in deck. That means we've won. We will discard some dead cards here to try to get a second one up just because not going to change anything. We actually do need to pressure this active for a little while, and that's why I'm drawing cards. I'm remembering now as I talk about it, but they only have 1 Pokemon in play, so Phione is not live. We have Marnie. One of the reasons we play 1 of Marnie is for this situation. If we get up to a 30 card hand and we still need to do damage on this 1 Pokemon to threaten benching them out, well, we can buy ourselves 20 extra turns with a 1 of Marnie. It's extra deck out insurance. Sometimes if you prize the Phione, then Marnie's your only way to avoid or delay decking out. It's not infinite, but it does last a long time with Mewtwo. If it looks like it's going to be a deck out game, it's nice to have that. Kind of drops your auto loss rate from 1 in 10 prizing the Phione. Well, now you can win some of the games where you do prize it because you have the option to recycle your hand and get sort of a pseudo shuffle draw effect. But we have the Phione, and now they bench the second one after we started pressuring it, so we're good now. We can get to the very exciting draw passing forever, and I'll go back to talking about playing rogues. What I'd recommend for playing rogue is do something that is fun for you, that you enjoy playing. I've always enjoyed playing this deck ever since I had the idea of putting the Bird Keeper engine to snipe down single prizers while you set up a Decidueye at the back, then knock out the single prizer, and then wall indefinitely. I've had a blast playing it. It's really rough to potentially lose competitive games to auto losses or dead draws because you're playing a rogue deck and you don't enjoy playing that rogue deck, you should be enjoying what you're doing. It's going to help you stay focused, it's going to help you find alternative win conditions, and it's going to help you stay one step ahead of your opponent. There's some formats where there's a meta deck that I really like, and it keeps me engaged in the game, and it's a good enough spot in the meta, and I can compete with that. I actually qualified for this Players Cup 3 regional finals by playing mostly Pikarom, just being able to electrify, and against that pool of players, I felt like I was above average in terms of quality, so that meant I could win enough to qualify without having to rely on hitting auto wins. And so playing a consistent meta deck made sense in that setting of I can outplay my opponents here. Once we got into regional finals, now I'm expecting to play players who had 93 point rep and above. Everyone here had 65%-ish win rate in 50 keys worth of qualifiers. There's no bad players here. Sure, someone might have found a great meta call or gotten really lucky matchup deck spread over the course of their 50 keys, but that's enough variance that everyone here is good, and I need to make top 4. So playing Pikarom probably wasn't going to get me there. I'm not as good as Mike Fouché, who played Pikarom and outplayed everybody, I'm sure, except for me, because it was an auto win for me. We'll see that later. It was on the stream anyway. But he's a better player than I am. He's been playing longer. He has more dedication probably to the game than I do. I work full time. I have anywhere from 40 to 80 hours a week that I'm working as part of my medical training. So I play casually and I play for fun, and I don't pretend otherwise. And so part of how I keep it fun and make it my own is I take on alternate strategies that may or may not work. Sometimes you have a good idea and it works out perfectly and you high roll. And here we start getting our Phione loop going, which feels really good. They're going to continue to move their Pokemon around, and we can speed this up a little bit. There's still somehow 17 minutes of footage left in this round. So you can see there's lots of draw passing going on. They're starting to dance with dolls here, using their retreats and their switches and their Malalanas to put 3 dolls out, recycle all of them to the bottom of the deck, and give them 3 extra turns to draw. Doesn't change the end game, but it does slow things down. So let's skip ahead a little further. And finally they run out here, or just kind of accept the inevitable. Let's see how this one ends. They may have run out of switch outs, and they have no cards. They can't retreat this Lucario Melmetal, and so there's the scoop. We'll go on to game 2 of round 4. This will be the last one for this video. Let me think of what else I want to say regarding rogue decks. Yeah, so I've talked about having fun, teching for any remotely popular matchup because you want as many auto wins as possible. It's okay to sacrifice consistency, especially when it's best 2 out of 3 and you can lose one of the 3 games to a dead draw. You want to have your auto wins. That's your win condition. So if I hadn't played this Phione, these would have been losses and I never would have made it. And I highlight that because it is kind of contrary to what most people in the Pokemon community preach, and I thought it might be useful for other more casual players like me to hear that and hear my experiences with it. To be clear, I am very competitive, and I do my best to win, and I do get emotional and invested in a game, and I'm really disappointed when I lose. So I'm competitive in all those aspects, but I'm not competitive where I can sort of devote my whole life to the game. It's a hobby to me. I keep it fun. So yeah, hopefully this channel can be a resource for other people like that. And I appreciate anyone who takes the time to watch this. Very exciting gameplay involving a full hour of footage that mostly involves draw passing. I suppose there was a slightly interesting thing at the beginning of this turn. you know, when I said you don't need to maximize consistency, that point stands. I do only have 4 really good draw supporters in this deck. I've seen some people talk about Decidueye and say, oh, I don't like to play Professor's Research because it's a stage 2 deck and you might have to lose rare candy or something early. Well, this game I had Research in my opening hand and I had to discard 2 Decidueyes, which is terrible. That's the whole goal, is to get it out. But the reason I play 2 Ordinary Rod is so that I can get those back. You can search for the Ordinary Rod with Rosa. You have Pokemon Communication and Scoop Up Nets. You have lots of ways to get Decidueye, even if you discard multiple. You need to be careful and check your prizes and know how many candies you have to work with and how many Decidueyes you actually need to win the game. But as long as you're careful with that, you need the power draw. Usually, I talked about this in my deck profile video, usually you need to draw 7 cards and then Stellar Wish to reliably get a Decidueye and a rare candy. So you probably will get one of the 2 in the 7 cards that you draw, and then your Stellar Wish hopefully will get you the other piece. Marnie can't even reliably get you one of the pieces, so the Stellar Wish then doesn't work as well. And to me, it just has been insufficient. And if you watch your resources carefully, you can make use of the research. The other thing you need in the early game is multiple basics down, multiple Rowlets, especially so they don't just get boss KO'd, because you need to be on the bench turn before you can evolve. So research gets you into multiple basic Pokemon much more reliably than the Marnie does. So they were able to target some of our basics down here. That's okay, we've got lots of time. We hit the rod like we talked about. That's excellent. We do need to do some damage here as well, because they can get these dolls off of the bench, and then our Phione's not live if they don't have a bench Pokemon to switch. So it's going to be another 15 turns of damaging this Zacian V in the active once we get the Decidueye out to force another bench down. But that's fine. We've got plenty of time. We get our Decidueye finally after the Ordinary Rod, Scoop Up Net, we get a Pokemon Communication, and just like that we know we've won the game. It's just a matter of slowly pressuring all of these the Zacian V so that he has to bench another one and doesn't get benched out. Let's see how much more time we have. I'll talk a little bit more on, while we wait for this game to do a little bit of damage at a time, when to play Rogue and when not to. It depends on your goals for that particular tournament and where the meta is at. There's plenty of times I've played Decidueye in an online tournament and promptly hit auto losses and been out of the tournament immediately. So you have to accept that that's part of it. There's nothing magic I can say, oh, you're going to get the perfect matchups and it's going to work for you. It's probably not, but it could, and there's a very real chance that it can. So rolling the dice in that way isn't that much different from picking a consistent deck and saying, I'm going to draw through my deck and hit everything I need to win each game against players who are better than I am. That's probably pretty controversial to say, but for me, I think that being aware of my limitations as a player is a big strength, because I can make aggressive calls like this and come out with finishes that I wouldn't have otherwise. Last summer, I was able to have a really good run through the Limitless online qualifiers and qualify for the Invitational. There's a little bit of a similar situation there where there were 16 world-class players that I was going up against. I would not have been able to beat them with a meta deck, but because I played something off meta and then got good matchups, that I was able to win the Invitational with a Spiritomb deck. And playing Rogue was a big benefit there because I needed to overcome the skill deficit between me and my opponents. If I had been stubborn and played, my preferred meta deck in that format, I think Dragapult was my favorite one, it wouldn't have worked. But I had a Rogue deck. I grinded the matchups. Figuring out the Dragapult matchup when you're playing Spiritomb was really fascinating and super fun. It took me a whole week before the Invitational to get that to work. And once I did, it was just so satisfying to be able to pull out my round 1 win by making some cool plays that my opponent didn't see coming because they hadn't practiced the matchup at all. So play Rogue if you want to beat people that are better than you and you know what they're going to play, if that makes sense. If you're better than the players you're going to be up against, then you want to play the most consistent deck possible, and you want to play a deck that has 50-50 matchup spread across the board. So we take out the dolls there. That's their temporary avoid deck out measure taken away. So we take that series and move to 4-0 now in the North American Players Cup 3 Global Finals. I hope you enjoyed my rambling here. These are some thoughts I'd wanted to have out there for a while. They're not the most organized. At some point I'll be writing articles for somebody that explain these more in details, because I really like to write and I really like to talk about this sort of thing. I appreciate anyone who decided to listen in for this long. It's been fun making these videos, trying to get my ideas out there a little more and just start a conversation that maybe I have a different voice and different perspective than most of the content creators. They do a great job and I'm big fans of them. It makes my life a lot better, but they just don't always have the perspective of somebody who has a full-time plus job and only has 5 to 10 hours a week to practice. How do you get tournament results still? So that's what my channel is here for. Hopefully my experiences are helpful for that purpose. If you guys have any feedback, tips on how to make the videos better, I'm all ears in the comments. Still figuring this all out as we go. Hope you tune in next time. We'll get some gameplay that involves less draw passing than today's. Hope you all have a great day, and thanks for watching again. Bye.